All right, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jason Callaway. I'm Vanessa's husband, have been so for 23 years, going on 24 quite soon. She asked me to introduce her and be no longer than 5 minutes, so I said I'll try to do it in less than 4. And I wrote down 4 words. I'm not going to get into politics or policy or why she's running or what she's doing, why she's doing what she's doing. I'm just going to let you know what type of person she is if you're not familiar with her. As far as a candidate, I think it's important that people should know what type of person their candidates are. So my first word I'll work on. 26 years ago, I was a correctional officer with the Texas Department of Corrections. I worked at the Ellis 1 unit. It was a death row unit, maximum security unit on the south side. Pretty brutal, harsh environment to work in. Good job and good pay. Well, one day I saw an officer walking in down the run, a female officer that was strapped, uniform strapped, no makeup, no perfume, no nonsense, just business. Of course, being a professional officer I was, the first thing I did is ask her out. She said, no, I've got a boyfriend in Missouri and in the Army. I'm committed right now. Being a good fisherman, I cast my lines out every now and then over that year. She always said the same thing until one day she said, sure, let's go out. So I think I hawked a gun or dug through the couch, got some silver money, and got me some tickets for the Houston Oilers. Tells you how long we've been together. Took her out, had a great time, brought her back. I didn't find out till later that her brother not only played in the NFL, was currently coaching in the NFL. She never said anything about it. That's humility, you know what I mean? She knew, you know, that she could have high-sided me. She'd been in press box in Texas Stadium for the Cowboys. She'd been all in the press boxes all around the NFL. First thing was she was faithful to that boyfriend. The second thing was she had humility, okay? She didn't have to high-side me, grandstand me. Took her out, she liked Tex-Mex, took her out to Papacitos. That's about the best you could get when you're coming from Huntsville, Texas, going south into Houston. And I know on the border they're laughing at it, but that's the stuff. I took her out, had a great date. I'll never forget, purple jeans, white blouse, purple hat. She was a Proverbs 31 woman way back then. End of the day, tried to give her a kiss. She looked at me and said, I'm not kissing you, I don't know who you are. Okay, self-respect. That's the third word. She had self-respect, she respected herself, okay? And I said that night, this girl I'm going to marry, right here and now. The last thing was, she's in the Army, I was in corrections. I'd been to a sheriff's academy, I was a reserve officer at the time. We had to qualify. We had to qualify Mach 66 Smith & Wesson 357, Remington 870 pump shotgun, and the AR-15 from towers in various positions at the Department of Corrections. I made a bet with her, bet. Whoever outshoots the other one, the other one's going to wash the cars. And wax it, hand wash and hand wax. And she took that bet, and we shot on that range that day, and probably at that time it was pretty old school. They had you shooting from 30, 35 different positions with all 3 different weapons. And a thought came to me later that day as I was washing her car. Quit trying to impress her. She's a faithful woman. She has humility, she has self-respect. And that last word is execution. When she puts her mind to something, she's going to get it done. And she outshot me that day, and I own the AR-15. So, and I got that in under 3 minutes, people. So without further ado, your next state representative for District 30 for the state of Texas, Lieutenant Colonel retired Vanessa Hicks-Callaway.
Good evening, everyone. As my husband Jason pointed out, I am Lieutenant Colonel retired Vanessa Hicks-Callaway, and for the record, the guy dumped me. Okay, as much as the guy dumped me, and so that opened up, an opportunity for me to go ahead and date Jason. So I am so pleased that each and every one of you took time out of your very busy holiday schedules to be here tonight for my campaign kickoff, and I do not take it for granted, and I am so appreciative because of all the other places that you could have been, but you decided to be here tonight. And I'm very touched by your presence here this evening. And so I want to get right into it. I want to start off with giving you some more background information about me, because I think I owe you that as a candidate, so that you can make an informed, very, very important decision. So I'm aware of that. So I'm going to give you a little bit more about my background, and I'm also going to get deeper into why I made this decision. I also know that that's something that voters also care very, very deeply about. Why is this person doing this? So we're going to get into that, and I'll get into a few other things. And I do want to save some time for questions. that you may have. And I will admit to you, I may not have all of the answers tonight, but I can assure you I will do my best to get them. Because I will say this, as a representative, I want to represent you, your needs, your wants, your desires, not necessarily mine. And so it's very important that we open up communication between us so that I can make sure, once I become the representative, I truly am representing your desires, your needs, and your concerns. So I'm going to go ahead and shift on to the next slide. We're having a few technical difficulties. I'm going to have to do it manually here. Let's see if we can get that to work. But this is just a montage. I know that's difficult to see. I've had quite a bit of fun doing what I do, and I've got family shots and different shots throughout the community that I've been involved in. So I wanted to share that very briefly. So let me get moving here. Here is where I get into who I am as a person. So I love these pictures because it basically demonstrates my, I guess, evolution of life. I started off right there. That's me as a private, made it onto the rank of lieutenant colonel. So let me get into the eaches of this particular story. Employment. I started off right here in Victoria, Texas, born and raised. I grew up, started off on the south side in a little house on Prince Street, and I spoke with my friend Carl Prince recently. Prince Street is actually named after his family. And so when people tell you that, oh, wow, I'm on the south side, I can't make it, I'm struggling, you're looking at living proof. Through my mother and through some very, very prominent relatives that helped us get over to the other side. So you're looking at a south side survivor. My mom, she is 94 years old, 94 years young, that is. And so again, I grew up right here in Victoria, Texas. I went to Smith Elementary School, went to Crane Middle School. Now it is, I believe, an elementary school. Went to Victoria High School. I was blessed to become an actual Victoriador for Victoria High School. How many stingarees do I have out there? All right, there you go. So you guys know what I'm talking about. And then I was blessed to go on from high school. I graduated in 85. Graduated in 1985 and went on into the United States Army, where I served as an enlisted soldier. And I was determined. I was not going to give up my enlisted experience until I made it to the rank of sergeant. Making that cut was so critically important for me. My job as an enlisted soldier, I was a logistician. You understand supply and demand? The commander demanded it, and I supplied it. With beans, blankets, and bullets. That was my job for 4 years. And I did it very, very effectively to the best of my ability, so much so that I was approached by a young man who had graduated from West Point. And this young man said, have you ever considered becoming a military officer? He saw something in me, and he planted the seed. His name was William Goff, Lieutenant Goff. So I want to encourage you guys, you see a young person doing something, you may plant that seed that inspires them to go on to do something bigger than they ever imagined. So I took it very seriously and went on to Sam Houston State University. That is in Huntsville, Texas. My husband alluded to that. I ended up getting a job as a correctional officer. That's bullet number 3. I'll work my way up in just a second back to the second bullet. But while I was there, I realized I needed more income. The Army GI Bill and the college fund is how I primarily funded my college education, where I did major in political science. However, it wasn't quite enough. So you're talking, yes, I was a female. I was a male-dominated, multi-offender unit. Male-dominated. We had, what, Jason, 3,000 male inmates?
2,200 and 400 death row.
Right, 2,200, 400 on death row. There were times I did have to work the death row unit. My mother thought I was completely crazy. But when you desire something, when you want that college degree and you know you need those additional funds, you're going to do what you have to do in order to get what you need. So I did work for that prison facility. And let me just touch on something very briefly. As it relates to the prison environment, it was a multi-offender unit. Had I been in an environment where you're talking individuals that were not multi-offenders, I think I probably would have had more, I guess, I don't want to say I wasn't compassionate. I was, but there was a certain degree, a lower degree of compassion because it was multi-offender. And so, However, I'm certainly not one to judge those folks. I came in and I did my job. While I was there, I was also a reservist. This gave me the opportunity to operate in law enforcement. So you're looking at a candidate that has enlisted experience and also someone that was a military police officer. So where are my law enforcement personnel out there? I respect what you guys do. Because as a military police officer in the reserves, I only got a taste of it. However, I have great respect for what you guys do. So I did serve as a military police officer as well. And then from there, I went back onto active duty after I graduated from college and with a political science degree, a bachelor's degree, and I minored in military science. From there, I spent the next 19 years as a military intelligence officer. Basically, it's Congress that commissions you to become an officer in the military. So I was blessed to receive everything I wanted. I got Fort Hood, and I also got military intelligence. That's what I wanted. In the military intelligence field, your job is to paint a picture for the commander from mud to space, to let the commander know pretty much, what the bad guys are doing, what the political situation is, and you brief that commander, and the commander, of course, gives questions. But that was my job for 19 years until I ended up retiring. I did, right after retirement, I served as a junior ROTC instructor. They're called Senior Army Instructors, where you bring in young people. So I have an affiliation, I love in my heart to try to help young people, and so I was a junior ROTC instructor. From there, I served, and now this gets into me having an opportunity to really utilize my political science degree. I was blessed to be picked up because of my affiliation with the Victoria GOP, to meet individuals that were involved with the 27th Congressional Office. And so they needed some help. And I was bold enough to say, you know what, pick me. I'm very interested in working for that Congressional Office, so I did that for nearly 3 years. And so, ladies and gentlemen, you're looking at someone that has experience and working in a Congressional Office, and when you work for a Congressional Office, you have to work with elected officials. Elected officials that are mayors, that are county commissioners, that are judges. You work, of course, with state senators, with state legislators, and so I have that experience. And I can draw upon some of those networks that I've already built when I worked as a constituent liaison and later also as a field representative for the 27th Congressional Office. I also served, I was blessed to serve as the field director for the re-election campaign for Senator Ted Cruz. And it's interesting how that came about. I have a reputation in the Republican Party of, getting out there, getting after it, and it's amazing how word of mouth can assist you with getting some of these positions. So I was blessed to work with the great, and I do think he's one of our greatest senators, Senator Ted Cruz, whom I do know. I mean, it would be nice if he would endorse me, but I don't think that will happen. I will ask. But Senator Cruz and I do know each other. We fought, many of you in this room. How many of you were part of that volunteering during the midterm? Outstanding. Audrey, yes. All of that. Dale, we're talking about, you guys know, so I won't rehash it. But a lot of work went into that. But I do have experience working at that level as a field director as well. So moving right along, I'm going to have a few more slides. My community work, I am a lifetime member of the NRA. I'm very proud of that. A few of the other things here, it kind of gives you a range of Vanessa. VBEC, that's Victoria Business and Education Coalition. How many of you are mentors with the Victoria Business and Education Coalition? I'm one of those mentors where you go into the schools, into the trenches, and work with kids. And just a few other things to basically demonstrate that I love my community and I want to serve my community. And these are just examples of that service. These are some of the former clubs. My husband said, okay, Vanessa, you're going to have to kind of rack and stack here and prioritize. And I'll probably circle back in and join some of these organizations at a later date. But I want to give you a full gamut of kind of Vanessa, why I'm running. And I think that's the reason why you guys are here. Guys, I am a servant leader. I want to serve you. I want to be your voice. I want to represent you. As I stated the other night, very briefly, we didn't have much time, but you all know that Texas is a battleground state. And we need bold, new leadership, not to just walk into the next year, but to walk into the next decade. And I really believe, otherwise I would not be doing this, that I am that person that can represent you into the next decade. My priority is to make sure, I know that our area was, ravaged by Hurricane Harvey. My home was damaged by Hurricane Harvey. When we left the area, I grabbed my mom, we took off. So we're still dealing with that. But what I want to do, if you give me a chance to represent you, I want to make sure that the recovery plans that you guys are paying for with your tax dollars, that we are executing that in a timely manner. And also, we are setting conditions so that when the next hurricane comes through or disaster, we have built up our businesses and our homes to the extent that we won't be as affected. And so I believe that as a representative, I can look into that and make sure, and also that we are accounting for those dollars and that they're not being poorly used. Hi, great. We have refreshments also, Darlene. Hey, please. I have an issue with red flag laws. I'm not into red flag laws. Sorry, I am a veteran. And I want to support, a lot of our veterans did go into combat. I went into 2 combat zones. They suffer with things like PTSD, etc. But I do not believe that that should be a reason to take weapons away from veterans. I do not believe that just because someone makes a phone call and says such and such is acting in a bizarre manner, it is enough for law enforcement to show up and remove weapons from someone's home. Already, ladies and gentlemen, it is not working. There are plenty of examples where this has gone haywire and it has cost men their lives. And so I am not a supporter of the red flag laws. The only flag that red flags, they're basically a white flag to the Second Amendment. We have the right to keep and bear arms, just like the Texas Constitution states also, we have the right to defend ourselves. So yes, Vanessa is a big supporter of our Second Amendment rights. The constitutional amendment process, my husband and I, we talk back and forth about the constitutional amendment process. By the way, he was a history teacher. He also taught world geography, he taught sociology, he also taught economics. So I'm being well advised occasionally, and we go at it, we argue. But the constitutional amendment process, with the 254 counties in the great state of Texas, we are concerned that as individuals move into this great state, they are moving into areas that are becoming populated with what we call blue thinkers, individuals that are liberals. And if we're not careful, we're going to have a majority of people that populate in certain areas making decisions as it relates to our Constitution. So Jason and I have discussed that they take an approach, almost an electoral college approach, where you have so many delegates per county that vote to determine what those changes will be to the Constitution. So in other words, we're concerned about a winner-take-all approach to what's happening in Texas because you have to think strategically. Remember, I'm not talking about next year, I'm talking about next decade. So I'm the type of leader for you that would be thinking along those lines and asking for your support and your ideas and your input to protect what we have here in the great state of Texas from individuals that aren't from Texas. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're not from Texas, I still love you. That's great. But make sure that you fall in with our values. Because our values, when you look at our economy, when you look at the success right here in Texas and our religious freedom, we've got something going here that works. Amen. So if you come, we just want you to fall in on that. Get in on that excitement. That's what we're hoping for. Other things, I talked about the amendment process. You know what? I spoke with someone about HB 3. That bill that gave the pay increase to public education professionals. These individuals, the teachers were the ones that received the pay raise. And somebody, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I was told, based on someone that contacted me personally, who said, you know what, Vanessa, if you want a teacher, you weren't in on that raise. And that concerns me, because my son is a special education child. There are paraprofessionals, like I was talking to Bob earlier about, that work with him. They're not exactly teachers, but they work just as hard. So I would like to see a pay increase across the board. And if you make me your representative, that's what I'll be fighting for. A pay increase for all of those professionals that work so hard each and every day. Goes without saying, guess what? I'm a proud Christian. I believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. I am very, very happy that in this country, I can stand there and say this. I can wave a Bible around. We need to keep that freedom. They want to say, you know what? Hey, Christians, keep your Christianity in the church house. I say, no. This nation was founded on Christian principles. I want to be able to serve God in the church house and in the public square. So I want to continue that. That's what you're giving me. The right to life. I'm going to say this very briefly as it affects African Americans. Right now, we only represent 12% of the population. However, of that 12%, only about 3% is of childbearing age. Get those numbers. 12% population, only 3% is of childbearing age, yet we are overrepresented on the abortion rolls. Almost to the extent that 30 to 40% of every abortion in America is done by an African American woman. It's so bad now, it's almost genocide. It's to the point where we are not even replacing ourselves as a race. So more of us are dying off than are being born. And so now we've reached the point where I get it with the Roe versus Wade and all of that and the superwoman and all that. Ladies and gentlemen, if you really want to do something, you can do it. I got myself college educated. I became an Army officer, and I have 2 kids. I've been married for almost 23 years. So you can't tell me, I don't buy that argument, that having a child is going to impact your life to the point where you can't be a successful woman. This room is full of successful women out there that made it happen. And so when they use that excuse, it's wrong, but it's to the point now where in the African American community, it is absolutely out of control. And if we don't start stepping up and making some sort of a difference, then it's going to continue to erode not only the African American race, but across the board. We can do better. I really believe that. And I will push a right to life agenda if you allow me to be your representative. Private health savings plans. I know that the liberals are very concerned about health care, and rightfully so. I believe that if we had some sort of a health care savings plan within the state of Texas, starting from birth, this is something that Ben Carson was trying to introduce at the federal level, to where from birth you start saving up and start preparing for that phase of life when you need more medical maintenance. Remember, I'm talking not next year, next decade. We need to start looking at that so we kind of loosen our reliance on the federal government for our health care. It should be an individual responsibility. Health care, I do not believe, is a right. It's a privilege that we are individually responsible for. That's my stance. Coastal issues, I understand. I am getting smarter and smarter as it relates to coastal issues. I know in Calhoun County, that is a very big deal to them. I know about the oyster situation. They're trying to harvest those oysters too early. And so as a result, it's affecting the industry on a broad scale. So if you make me your representative, that will be a priority. I will fight to support those coastal issues and protect that industry. Stadium. Now this is pie in the sky right here. Victoria County needs a new stadium. I know that in the 86 legislature, they passed legislation to where the University of Houston, Victoria, they are now able to pay an additional fee in order to get a healthplex type setup. And again, this is just Vanessa's idea. What I believe they need to do is look at using those funds and creating a stadium based on the University of Houston, Victoria. And I realize they may not have sports where they need to play in a stadium, but remember, I'm talking next decade, not next year. Victoria County needs a new stadium. So I would like to partner with University of Houston, Victoria and VISD and try to leverage some of those funds that they're already got approval to start collecting, so we move towards building a new stadium. Ladies and gentlemen, like my husband alluded to earlier, my brother, David Atkins, played football in the stadium in Victoria, Texas. We're talking back in the 60s. We can do better. It's that same stadium. Yeah. When my husband and I traveled around, my son played football. When we went to out-of-town stadiums, we got a reflection of that community based on the condition of the stadium. Absolutely. Some small cities have excellent facilities. I mean, outstanding. When you look at Cuero, they built up, they don't have a stadium, but they built up their area, they spent a lot of money, it's very nice. Now is the time. We need a new stadium. I would love to partner with those agencies and make that happen. So that's pretty much my platform. I understand I've got to get around throughout the district. We have 6 counties within District 30. These are just a few of the areas that I'll be going to over the next couple of weeks. And I put this slide up here to let you know that I understand that I need to get out to Commissioner's Court, City Council meetings. I'll be going to the Republican Party meetings throughout all of those counties. And I'm also going to get out to see the Chamber of Commerce is within those areas, because I really want to meet those guys and let them know that I'm there to hopefully become their representative and represent their needs, their desires, and their concerns. So I am going to get out and about. Just wanted you to know I recognize I have to do that. I wanted to touch a little bit on Black history. The Republican Party was started back in 1854 because the Republican Party wanted to end slavery. And a lot of people don't understand that. It was the Republican Party. They were the first abolitionists. And in the state of Texas, we have plenty of examples of Republicans that stepped up and served in the legislature. So this is nothing new. So those of you kind of contemplating, I'm nothing new to the Republican Party for the state of Texas. So I just want to give you a welcome president. And then this concludes my overview of Vanessa. I've talked to you about a little bit about my background. I've told you why I want to serve and some of the highlights from my platform. And I've talked to you about my family a little bit. And so now what I'd like to do is just sort of end this, and we can talk, do some sidebars, or I'm ready to take questions right now, whatever you guys want to do. If you want to refill your drinks, get some more food, it's up to you. But please, are there any questions, issues, and or concerns at this time that I can address? Sir?
The most difficult question a representative has at the beginning of the term, and then probably the most unfair question you'll be asked: who would be the perfect representative or Speaker of the House? We've had 3 rhinos in a row. Where are we going to find a good Speaker of the House for Texas?
That is a great question. And so I'm glad that Dale has asked that question. Oh, hi, Pastor Diggs. I'm glad you made it, sir. Great. Let me answer this way. One of my concerns is that if you have someone that is in the House of Representatives for an extended period of time, to me, you should move up or move out, because you are building up quite a bit of influence. And if you're not using that influence to get to that top job, then I kind of scratch my head on that. And I will tell you, if you guys consider me for your representative, that's exactly what I'll be trying to do, Dale. I will be trying to work at, within the next 4 to 6 years, becoming the Speaker of the House for the sole purpose of strengthening what I can do for the 30th District. Because the Speaker of the House is the gatekeeper. They help to determine which of those bills make it onto the legislative floor. But for right now, I really have not done the research to kind of rack and stack who I would recommend to be the next Speaker. But we definitely will need someone who understands that Texas is a battleground, who understands what Texas is up against. And you know what? I certainly hope that they pick someone that is aggressive and really good. But to answer your question, I really have not done the analysis and the research to give you a decent answer. But hopefully I've given you kind of the construct of what I think a speaker or a representative should be doing once they get in the office, especially if you have built up momentum and influence and time. You should be going for that speaker job to fight for your district and to do what's best overall for Texas. But that's a very good question. I thank you for allowing me to kind of unpackage that a little bit. Are there any other questions, issues, or concerns? Ted?
Yeah, okay, I would like to just mention briefly this whole question of high-speed rail. And this is not a big thing in the United States right now, but it's a very big thing in other parts of the world. The Chinese have like 30 or 40,000 miles of high-speed rail now. They're building high-speed rail in Africa right now. We have 0, right? So we're having African countries probably laughing at us. This is going to be a giant issue. It's like, by all rights, logically, Victoria should be the most major high-speed rail hub in Texas, okay? It's like, you can draw a north-south line through Dallas and Fort Worth, right? It's like 90% of everything and everybody in Texas lives on that line or to the east of it, right? It's like the 4 major cities that we have here are all like, it's like on the rim of a wheel, right? And we're the hub of that wheel. We're in the exact center of that wheel, right? It's like, the high-speed rail line should go from each of those 4 cities to Victoria, and then you should have like at least one high-speed rail system, probably from Houston out to Dallas-Fort Worth, and then from Dallas-Fort Worth to El Paso, right? But there's going to be battles to be fought in order to make that happen. This is not coming, next month or next.
Right.
next year, right? But it's going to be, you're taking a 10-year view on things. This is going to be within the 10-year view, right? This is a giant issue. You'd be talking about getting from here to Houston in 20 minutes, right? You'd be talking about, people living in this central part of the wheel, right? Being able to take jobs in Houston or Austin or San Antonio, which are high-paying jobs, right? It's like it would completely change the economic dynamics of this whole region.
Right.
Okay, but you need somebody to fight these battles. Make sure somebody doesn't decide just to make a circle out of the thing and leave the whole middle part of the wheel out of the picture. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
The Jean Morrison is not the person I would want fighting that battle. I mean, her resume doesn't really seem to show a whole lot of, fighting hard battles or useful or, meaningful stuff like that, right? I mean, it's like at age 69.
So let me respond to that.
Yeah.
As far as the high-speed rail is concerned, my loyalty would come first to the people of Texas and to the 30th District. And if discussions about bringing in a high-speed rail would have some sort of a negative impact on the economic situation amongst those leaders that I would be affiliated with, because we would have to have committees, we would have to have town hall discussions, etc. But I would be very, very cautious. I'd be very, very timid about moving forward with a decision that could have a negative economic impact on the people within the 30th district. Yeah. And I say that because I know that Lenny, the airport manager in Victoria County, has worked very, very hard. And there is a shuttle that goes from Houston, the air shuttle, that goes from Houston to Dallas. As a matter of fact, when I brought in Lieutenant Colonel Allen West for the big gala fundraiser that was very successful, by the way, many of you got a chance to come out to that, I was able to get him a flight on that shuttle back and forth. So it was very convenient. So a high-speed rail would compete with that effort. As a matter of fact, I believe it's Goliad that's also working on trying to bring in an airport to their area as well. So, and I'm also on the planning commission.
To think about it.
Yes, I'm on the planning commission for Victoria, Texas. And so I understand what you're saying. I know that I started off with my platform, we're working on the next decade, but I would put my loyalty first with the people of the 30th district and look economically at what the reward and what the risks were associated with that decision and move forward with what I call an informed decision. So very good question, and you're right to be thinking strategically. So it's something that we're going to have to deal with in the future, I'm sure. But the priority would go to the concerns of the, yes, ma'am.
So I'm going to ask a question that I'm going to preface. I think I know a little bit about your opinion, but I've been in Victoria County most of my adult life, and I know Jeannie Morrison very well. But getting on the Cruz bandwagon a little bit, he has a bill about term limits. And my question to you is, the current situation in Washington and in Texas is we don't have term limits. And as an adult, over 50 now, I do realize all the problems that not having term limits has created, not only on a national level that we just viewed on television for the last 3 days and on a state and local level. So what is your opinion about term limits in general?
Leanne, thank you. That's a very good question. And you guys are going to be surprised by this, considering the fact that I am going against a 20-year incumbent. I do not support term limits. I do not. I think that the people, based on the Constitution, deserve the opportunity to choose who their representatives will be every 2 years. And the people have the power of the Texas government, by the Texas government, for the Texas government. The people are the ones that are supposed to decide. And if you are not happy with someone that's in office, the people have the power to remove that person, already granted to them by the Constitution. And so if we kind of micromanage that and come in with term limits, it's almost as if we are creating an apathetic constituent. They say, oh, okay, well, they're going to be leaving in whatever years. No, they need to be engaged. They need to take a look at what their leadership is doing and then make decisions according to the Constitution. So, although even in this situation, it sure would be nice.
On a corporate level in Washington, D.C., I'm in the insurance and investment business, as a lot of people in the room know.
Yeah.
I'm fully aware of what the insurance industry can get done in Washington with their lobbyists. And, as you grow older, you realize a lot of those guys are bought and paid for, And I hate to say it that way, but that's how I feel about it, being that I have met in Washington multiple times as a part of my professional association. I just, you know, I understand your construct. I wish most people knew the Constitution. I wish they'd read it at least once. I'm being funny, but being true,
A lot of power.
so, I mean, going forward, I think I don't think the state legislature is as big a problem as what we deal with in Washington, but it's kind of sad. When you got a guy that serves till he's in his 90s, I'm sorry. I mean, you know, I'm just, my personal
But
opinion.
of course, as you know, Leanne, there are pros and cons with that, because I have great respect for Jeannie Morrison,
Right.
just so you all know that. And her having been in that office as long as she has benefited the 30th district. There's no doubt about that. The networks and all the work that she's done, the seniority, the committees, et cetera, that has benefited this district.
University of Houston.
And the University of Houston Victoria. So make no mistake, I recognize that. But I will also say this, that I have been involved because of my experience with Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom, being on the Planning Commission. You're not looking at someone that cannot step into those shoes and pick right up where she left off. I believe that I have the ability to network and meet people. That will not be a factor. So if you make me your representative, I'll hit the ground running so that we have a smooth transition. So, but yes, I do respect what she's been able to build. Otherwise, there is no way. If I did not have the background that I had, there's no way I would try to come up and be that replacement to usher us into that next decade, because I realize how critically important it is that you get the right person in there with the right education. I have the political science degree. I also have a master's degree in human resource administration, experience at the congressional level as a constituent liaison, et cetera. So if I didn't have that, there's no way I would step up and say, you know what, pick me. I'm ready to pick up the ball, because some of our leaders have been at this a while. They deserve a break. They're waiting for people to step up and take the baton and take Texas to the next level, at least the 30th. But that's a very, very good question.
So what committees are you interested in?
Well,
You do get it.
actually, if I get in there, I would want the tourism and recreation. Number one, of course, the military, the veterans committees, I want a part of that. But here's why I say that very briefly. I'm not really happy with what's going on with George P. Bush as it relates to the Alamo. You guys need to track that,
Amen.
because I've been told that the UN has a greater role in what happens with our Alamo. So I believe if I could get on that committee, you better believe I will be fighting for the traditional, the historical aspects of the Alamo and trying to preserve that. Now, I got it. I said I want to go into the next decade, et cetera. I get that. I know that change happens. But if you bring in the right people, we can find a balance. We can improve that area and still respect the Alamo and its rich history. It's just not right to me. It's called the cenotaph, the monument that sits on top of the remains of the men that sacrificed their lives. Bowie, men like that sacrificed their lives for the state of Texas. We have no right to disturb their resting place. I'm totally against that. So on a committee like that, you better believe I feel like I could make a difference, especially with coupling with my military background and my understanding of what it means when a warrior is in his resting place. You don't mess with that. That is sacred. And I think you have people right now that don't really get it from that perspective.
Right.
That would be me. I would be fighting to preserve the rich traditions of the Alamo. But what I'd like to do is kind of end this with maybe one or two more questions, give you guys a chance to partake in some more refreshments. Yes, sir?
And just sidebar to this gentleman's kind of question and comments on the high-speed rail. One of the major problems you're going to run into that is eminent domain.
Yeah.
And I'm curious as to how you look at eminent domain.
Right. According to the Constitution, they being the business owner, the landowner, deserve a fair price for their property. Now, I am also a homeowner. We live in the Northwest area, and if a high-speed rail wanted to come through my area, and if I was already entrenched, I love my area, I don't want to move, I would hope that the leadership would allow the population, the people that live in those areas, to have a voice, to have an opportunity to talk about why our area is not the best area to move that high-speed rail through. So I'm not against prosperity. I'm not against moving to the next level, but what I am against is for a planning commission to not take full consideration of the full impact of moving a high-speed rail through people's homes that have been there maybe generations. So to answer your question, I would be challenging that and asking that they please consider looking at areas where you can minimize the impact to private property owners' areas. But if the decision is made, they're going to move forward, then I would want a fair price. And I would be fighting to make sure that those impacted financially get a fair price for their property. Yes, sir. Then before I move to you, does that answer your question?
Thank
you. You're welcome. Pastor Diggs.
The first thought that came to my mind was the environmental impact of high-speed rail. Throughout the state, we have problems with flooding in our metropolitan areas, and that would have to be a very serious consideration, and it would require much study, I would think.
Right, you're absolutely right. I mean, I have heard horror stories to where construction sites were shut down because of a spider. So, you know, obviously, like you're saying, sir, the environmentalists, those committees, those discussions would take place back and forth, and ultimately, I believe they would come up with the decision that's best for everyone. But of course, there's going to be some give and take. You have to kind of give and take a little bit, but you make a very good point. So my answer is, in discussion, committees, I believe that they would discuss that and kind of hash it out and do away with the risks and try to mitigate those risks as best they could.
Yeah, looking to the future, I think that is really one of the serious answers to our public transportation problem.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
It's high-speed rail.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. However, I am reminded, and I'm not to go against high-speed rail, Ted, and you and I have had a couple of conversations about this, but I am reminded of the high-speed rail in California to nowhere.
Yeah.
Billions.
You need to make sure that doesn't happen. You need somebody to fly.
We would have, so I'd want to fly down there. I'd want to go to California, talk to them directly,
Right.
and ask what the heck happened. Because if we move forward with that, we don't want to see that happen in our area. So that really concludes what I had for you guys as far as the question and answer. Again, I thank you so much for being here tonight. I've never done this, and for you guys to be here, you're now a part of this movement. And so I don't want to let you guys go without doing two things. One, I'm going to ask for your vote tonight. I want you to seriously consider voting for Vanessa Hicks-Callaway to become your next representative for the Texas House for District 30. I give you my word. I will do my very best. I will work just like I served you when I served in the United States Army. I'll give you that same service. And the next thing I'm asking you for is campaigns aren't cheap. If you're able to dig deep, $5, $10, whatever it is, I'm asking you to please partner with me and help me make it and to be able to become the next representative. So there's some information back there. I do have a website that you can go to. It's www.vanessahickscallaway.com for more information. And finally, I just thank you guys so much for coming out, and I wish you all a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays and a great Happy New Year. I want you guys to call me. If you've got a question, you say, Vanessa, that doesn't make sense. Or Vanessa, you didn't cover this. I want you to call me. We can talk about it. You can email me. Where's David? David, eventually I do respond to emails. Okay? And Leanne, I do respond to voicemails eventually.
I just wanted to know the starting time. And I was late, sorry.
I'm sorry. So, but please reach out to me, because guess what? I don't have all the answers. You guys do. I just want to be your representative. I want to be your voice, represent your concerns and your needs as the next rep for the 30th District. Thank you all very much. And we have plenty of food, and we do not want to take it back with us. So you guys partake. So Ted, was that
Absolutely splendid speech. Go back. Very good. Absolutely splendid. Yeah. I mean, you've got a future in national politics.